Welcome back, everyone. We're going deep today. Deuteronomy 29, a chapter all about covenants and consequences. But you know what's interesting? It also speaks to how we choose to worship, even in our modern lives.
Yeah, it really does. This chapter, it marks a huge turning point for the Israelites. They're about to enter the promised land, and Moses is renewing that covenant with God. But it's not just like, hey, remember all the cool stuff God did. It's more like, hey, remember what's at stake here.
So it's not just a victory lap, huh? Moses is laying down the law.
Exactly. He reminds them of everything, parting the Red Sea, providing food in the wilderness. But it's not just bragging. He's really pointing to the power dynamic here.
Like, don't forget who you're dealing with.
Yeah, exactly.
And those specific examples, the Red Sea, the manna, those weren't random.
Right. Every miracle addressed a specific need. Like the Red Sea shows God's power over obstacles, and the manna shows God's provision even when things are tough.
So it's about building that trust, right? Showing reliability.
Yeah, and setting the stage for what's next, because this covenant, it's not just for the people standing there with Moses. It extends to future generations, even the outsiders who join them. It's like this idea that agreements with God, or even just our core values, they impact everyone, not just us.
Well, that's a lot of responsibility. What happens if they don't hold up their end of the deal?
Well, Moses gets pretty serious. He tells them that turning away from God to worship other gods, which were literal statues back then, it leads to some bad
He
consequences.
doesn't just say, maybe don't do that.
He paints this picture of total devastation. Like the land will become like Sodom and Gomorrah. It's supposed to be a warning, but even for us today, it makes you think, what are our idols?
Yeah, I see what you mean. We might not be bowing down to golden calves, but are there things in our lives that are just as demanding?
Exactly. Things like money, status,
Yeah.
maybe even technology. Do those things control us or do we control them?
So we need to figure out what's secretly at the center of our lives.
Mm.
Those sneaky idols we don't even realize we're worshiping.
Right. And the consequences, well, maybe they're not as dramatic as, a wasteland or something, but they can be just as damaging, like burnout, broken relationships, even feeling empty. That's all possible when we prioritize the wrong things.
Okay, so how do we avoid these pitfalls? Does Deuteronomy give us some kind of roadmap for these modern day idols?
Well, that's where it gets more interesting. See, the chapter doesn't end with, a list of rules. It talks about secret things belonging to God. Like we
Huh.
just don't have all the answers. And maybe that's okay.
Hold on, so are we just supposed to wander around hoping we don't accidentally worship the wrong things? That's not very helpful.
It's not about being passive, right? It's about realizing that we don't understand everything. We can try to live by our values, be kind and all that, but we got to accept that, well, we don't see everything like God does.
So we do what we can, make good choices and all,
Hmm.
and just trust that there's a bigger picture we don't see.
Exactly. But it doesn't mean we can't, think for ourselves. We have like our own experiences to learn from. We can learn from others, even from, texts like this one. It's about putting it all together, to make the best choices.
But isn't there a problem with focusing too much on the bad stuff?
Yeah.
Does it turn faith into being afraid instead of love and trust?
That's a really good point. It's about balance, I think. We got to see that our choices matter, but we can't let fear stop us from doing anything. Because Deuteronomy 29, it's not just warnings, it's about relationship, like a promise, love, and commitment, and all that.
When you talk about those modern idols,
Yeah.
I'm realizing I've definitely put work ahead of family time. It makes you really think about where you're putting your time and energy.
Yeah, we all struggle with that, right? There's always that pressure to, do more, achieve more. It's easy to get swept up in all that. That's why it's so important to, just stop and think sometimes.
Like a self-check, asking yourself, am I really living by what matters most?
Yeah, exactly. And then based on that, you can make, deliberate choices about moving forward. Maybe it's setting boundaries or changing what you focus on, or maybe just being more present in everyday life.
I like that. It's empowering. We might not know everything, but we can choose how we react to what happens in life.
Definitely. And even when we mess up, we can always, get back on track, realign with our values and keep going.
It's like we're always renewing that promise
Mm.
with ourselves and with what we think is sacred.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And that's where grace comes in, right? We don't have to be perfect. Just keep trying, keep growing.
So to wrap up our deep dive into Deuteronomy 29, what's the one big thing you want listeners to take away?
I think the biggest takeaway is just to be intentional. Like, really look at those modern day idols
Mhm.
that might be, controlling things without us realizing it. And then just make conscious choices about what really matters.
So it's not just about avoiding the bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's more like um, actively choosing the good stuff, the things that fit with our values.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it's a journey. We'll mess up, but we can always get back on track. We can renew that commitment to ourselves and to whatever we consider sacred, I guess.
It's like that saying, right? We're not human beings on a spiritual journey. We're spiritual beings on a human journey. We're going to make mistakes, but doesn't mean we're, totally lost.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. In Deuteronomy 29, it does both. It challenges us, but it also encourages us. It reminds us that our choices matter, but it also reminds us that, well, we're not alone in all this. We have resources, we have each other, and we have that deeper connection that ties it all together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Deuteronomy 29, any final thoughts for our listeners?
I'd say embrace the unknown. We don't have all the answers, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't, be brave and curious.
Hmm.
Trust the process, be open to the mystery, and you might just be surprised by the beauty you find along the way.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Deuteronomy 29, everyone. We hope you found some insights and inspiration for your own journey.